Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So debanking is a real problem, and we need to work across the aisle to solve it. I've got a stack of stories sent in by consumers and organizations that were debanked. I'd like to submit them for the record. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These stories are from Muslim Americans, from cannabis businesses, from formerly incarcerated individuals, all of whom lost their bank accounts for no apparent reason. So I want to talk about what kind of recourse consumers have or don't have when they are debanked. Mr. McCauley, you testified that your company lost its bank account when you tried to open a new one. Dozens of banks, including some of the biggest banks in the country, turned you down. Which of the big banks refused to offer you an account?
Senator, I don't think it's productive to name individual banks. Well, I believe the banks were the victims here.
Okay, I just wanted to get it into the record because we have recourse. Did you get an opportunity to appeal the decision with any of those banks?
No, Senator. There was no room for discussion with the banks.
So no appeals at all. You know, that's unfortunate. The CFPB has accepted 11,955 complaints from consumers and organizations that were unable to open accounts or their accounts were wrongly closed just in the last 3 years. Do you agree that it's useful to have a database for this information so that we can identify trends, both the types of individuals or businesses that are targeted and also the banks where this is happening?
Senator, more data and more transparency will help.
Okay, good. You know, I don't think for a second that you should be locked out of our banking system. In many cases, it is wrong for banks to close accounts and threaten your ability to make payroll or pay rent on time without even providing an explanation, so long as you are following the law. So, Mr. McCauley, do you agree that people who are illegitimately debanked deserve some rules to protect them and an appeals process if they lose their accounts?
Yes, Senator. Something should be done to make sure that regulators do not do this again.
Okay. And if banks are adopting policies that routinely debank people based on their beliefs or other illegitimate reasons, that's wrong. It needs to be stopped. Mr. McCauley, should consumers be protected from being debanked based on their political or religious beliefs?
Yes, Senator. Many individuals within the crypto industry were debanked, and I wish agencies had helped them.
And I presume you would carry that over to people who are debanked for other reasons as well.
Of course.
Because of their beliefs. You know, the CFPB has been on the front lines of combating debanking for years now. In 2022, they added debanking to the list of illegal practices that bank examiners should be on the lookout for. Last year, they wrote rules to crack down on debanking by payment apps and the third-party data aggregators that the banks use to decide who to kick out of the financial system. Just last month, they proposed a rule to stop companies like PayPal that had considered fining users for certain types of speech on their platform. Mr. Klein, how would the CFPB's rules help put a stop to unfair debanking?
Well, Senator, the CFPB is really on the forefront of looking for consumers, making sure consumers have access to high quality and fair banking practices as opposed to the bank regulators who are too often focused on the bank. I can think of 5 rules that the Bureau has: their contract rule, their UDAP or unfair discriminatory practices rule, their larger participant rule, which would give them authority over places like Venmo and PayPal, which you just described, their data broker rule, which includes credit reporting agencies like this CheckX system that maintain a de facto do not bank list, where, again, there's no economics to require those things to be accurate. It's simply a limited appeal process. And their overdraft rule, because when you ask people who've lost their bank account or are out of the banking system, why don't you have a bank account? The number one reason is it's too expensive. And their overdraft fees, which some estimates were up to $30 billion a year or more, are part of the large reason people leave. So those 5 rules the Bureau have put out would all combat debanking in various ways.
Thank you. The CFPB is ready for this fight. And every day that the CFPB is locked out of doing its job, people are getting debanked. If the president is serious about stopping debanking, then he needs a strong CFPB as his partner to get this done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.